Anybody can do tapping anywhere. All you need is your fingers.
I'm not against medications. I'm against the shortcut. This is the fix all when it really isn't. Our bodies are made to heal themselves. So why not execute the things that could work? Because anytime you introduce pharmaceuticals, you're introducing side effects.
Tapping is a really great combination of 3 different modalities. The first of which is energy. It could be a pain or a fear or a limiting belief of any kind. Then there is a blockage in that energy system. Something happened that was unfair. So we start leaning into the emotion and honoring it and acknowledging it, essentially so that we can allow our bodies to let go of it. It's the combination of the energy, the cognitive, and the somatic therapies that is incredibly powerful. When we feel stress, electrical signals go up to our stress center in our brain, and it's signaling that something feels unsafe.
We're all made up of energy.
Yeah.
It's a magnificent thing, really.
We are multifaceted beings. We are physical and spiritual and intellectual and emotional. Tapping creates the space for you to feel it. Feeling it is what allows you to move through it.
An exploration of trauma, transformation, and triumph. Your healing starts here. On Through the Trauma podcast, we don't just talk about transformation, we ignite it. This season, I'm inviting you to something extraordinary. It's called the burn ceremony. Picture this, a guided, powerful ritual where we symbolically burn away all of the old versions of yourself that's no longer serving you. This is not just a ceremony. It's a rebirth, a chance to let the flames of transformation forge you into your new identity. And whether you're ready to break old chains or step into your next level of unstoppable, this is your moment. Join us for the burn ceremony and experience a shift like never before. Head on over to our website at www.burnitceremony.com and claim your spot, because this year, we're going to rise from the ashes together. And we are back with another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. And I am Amber, your host. And today I have with me Miss Amy Vince. She is a tapping coach. And I am so excited to talk about this because if you've not heard how valuable tapping can be when you're dealing with trauma and overcoming trauma healing, all the things you may have been through with your trauma, tapping is definitely an awesome modality that it's holistic. It promotes wellness in a phenomenal way. And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about this and introduce you guys to tapping. So if you've never heard of that, stay tuned because we have an amazing episode for you. And Amy, thank you so much for coming on to share with us today all about tapping.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Now, you started Soar with Tapping, which is an app that helps people do this on their own. Is that how this works?
Yes, absolutely. Anybody can do tapping anywhere, anytime. I mean, really all you need is your fingers handy, and sometimes you don't even need that. Ideally though, sometimes starting off with it, you need a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance about how to actually do the tapping. And so that's what the app is for, is to really guide you through the process and kind of hold your hand down the road of healing, because a lot of us don't often know the ins and outs and the depth that we need to go to with the healing in order to release it. So that's what the app is for, really.
Yeah. And for someone like myself, who I've done this podcast, but I mentioned before we jumped on recording, it's come up on the podcast several times, but I don't know that I've spoke to someone who is just specifically a tapping coach or that specializes in that particular modality. So I'm excited to get into this, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions that come up about how this all works and what the benefits and things are. But I have heard awesome things about the power of tapping. And I want you to explain to us a little bit. Well, first of all, before we get into the logistics of what it is and the benefits of it, how did you find it and what made you interested in this particular modality?
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it too. But to go back, I found it because somebody introduced me to it at a time when I was really struggling in my life. I had been diagnosed with breast cancer and I was just going through a lot. I was alone in that. and then that journey. And thank goodness I was a bit of a seeker. And so I was just kept trying to find the right modalities. And I became a massage therapist, and I was exploring nutrition, and I was going down all of these different roads. And then somebody introduced me to tapping, and I immediately knew that that was the right fit for me. And I got certified shortly thereafter and haven't really looked back since, but I did have limited success with it in the beginning because I didn't really know how to use it. I was constantly tapping on the symptoms I was experiencing and not the root cause of those symptoms. So I was focusing on whatever addiction issues I was having, and I was focusing on the procrastination that I was experiencing and all of those things. And while I would have limited success with tapping in that, because I was never tapping on the root cause of the problem, those symptoms kept coming up. And I kept thinking, tapping doesn't work. It works in a moment, but it's not working long term, and I don't understand this. But then when I started applying it in a different way, then kind of my whole world opened up, and that's what led me to creating the app, because I'm like, oh, people need to know about this. They
Mhm.
have to be able to do this on their own in order
Yeah.
to achieve the same results that I have.
So this is probably why because you went down that journey of figuring all of this out and trying to navigate why things aren't working. So this is why now you're like, you need a little bit of coaching, but once you understand how to do it, then it's very valuable to do.
Absolutely.
So with the app, you're a creator of the app, but do you also offer coaching, group coaching, or something that goes along with it? Or when you download the app, do you get like instructions, or how does that work?
There are instructions. There are many videos on the app that tell you how to work through bigger things like depression or anxiety or procrastination or addiction, things like that. S- Videos on just how to tap. And then when you get into a tapping script, there's like about 12 different categories that go from goal support to sleep to fears and phobias. You name it, it's on there, and you pick one that you want to do. And then there's an avatar that shows up, and it will show you where to tap, but there's also verbal cues about telling you where to tap and what to say. So you're just kind of parroting me and my voice and the avatar. So you just tap where the avatar tells you to tap, and you say what I'm saying, and you rate yourself before. You take a rating 0 to 10, say I'm at a 9 on an intensity scale of feeling really angry right now. And then you do the tapping round, and then you rate yourself again. And hopefully the number has gone down, and it will tell you why it hasn't gone down if it hasn't, or if it's gone up. And then you just kind of go forward from there. Hopefully you have time and you can do the tapping round again if you're not at a 0, and you just keep going until it gets down to a 0.
Okay, so I'm really anxious to get into the science behind it because the body itself intrigues me, to be honest with you. Sometimes people are so quick to move into medicine or doctors or some type of medication when I feel like our bodies are made to heal themselves. So why not execute the things that maybe could work without going that route? Because anytime you introduce medicine or pharmaceuticals, you're introducing side effects. Whereas if you're doing something like this, it kind of attacks the root problem and not just a band-aid, which
Yeah.
is the problem that I have with medication. I'm not against medications. I'm against the shortcut of like this is the fix all when it
Yeah.
really isn't.
Using it as a solution.
That's
When
right.
when I think there's a really specific place for medication and kind of the Western medicine approach. It comes in great handy if you are at a breaking point and you need just some support to make it through a moment, whether that's physically or emotionally. You need some support to be able to get past that stage and get out of your own way enough to do something like tapping and be open to it. If you are, feeling like suicide is the option, go down that road. That's going to be the quickest fix for you in the moment. Get some medication, you know, talk to a doctor, and then when you feel like you've leveled out, that's the time to start doing something like tapping. So tapping has its place, but I also think that medication has its place. But hopefully it's not the long-term solution. And hopefully there's a courage and a willingness to kind of wade through those tough moments in order to allow your body to heal. Because I agree, our bodies are miraculous. The only reason they're not healing is often because there is that emotional element that we haven't released, and it is creating a blockage in our systems, an inability for our body to do what it's supposed to do what it would do naturally. And we're getting in our own way. And so tapping is a tool that we can use to help release those blockages and allow that healing part of us to thrive again.
Yeah, and I really love what you said because how you describe that is so perfect. It's like if you had a car accident and you're bleeding out and you're losing all this blood and you're life or death, then by all means you need a hospital. You need a
Yeah,
doctor, you need a surgery.
absolutely.
But if you start to feel symptoms, and I love the way like you said the body is miraculous. We have certain triggers or guidelines that'll start to show us that there's a problem present. And so when we start to feel there's a problem present, that's when we can go and explore different modalities to perform optimally. Like we want to be at our optimal level. And I think so many people live with things and we can compare this to sickness or to disease or whatever, but in reality, emotions it's a whole thing in and of itself. And people disregard emotions as kind of not important. I
Yeah,
see it time and time again where people just stuff emotions. They don't want to face them. They don't want to figure out. And it's sometimes it is emotional digging back into old emotions, but it's so vital. And I want people to understand how vital that is because if you let old stagnant emotions like rest in your body, they're going to get stuck somewhere inside of your body and it's going to manifest in some way. It's going to
yeah,
come out in some way.
yeah,
So I love the idea of an app because to me, it seems like for someone who maybe they don't want to go to therapy, they're opposed to it because it has a negative connotation or whatever. Now you can do this on an app in the privacy of your own home.
yeah,
That's how this works, right?
yeah, yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the thought process behind tapping and kind of how that releases those emotions.
Okay. Um, Maybe now's the right time to go into how it works, and then we'll
Yeah.
go into kind of the science behind it a little bit as well.
Yes.
Tapping is a really great combination of three different modalities. The first of which is energy therapy, just like in acupuncture. It utilizes the 14 energy meridians that are found in Chinese medicine, and in particular, the acupressure points where an acupuncturist will put a needle. That might be where we are tapping on that acupressure point. So they use the needle to help, and this is our energy system, and so they see it as when there is a problem, and it could be a pain or a fear or a limiting belief of any kind, then there is a blockage in that energy system, and they use needles. Acupuncturists use needles in order to break up that blockage and allow our energy system to flow again, because that's when we're in the state of healing that we're talking about. So tapping uses the percussion to help break up that blockage and allow energy to flow. But where I think tapping takes it to the next level is that it also incorporates the cognitive therapy aspect because we are actively talking about what it is we want to release while we are tapping on the energy meridians. So the entire time we are honoring and acknowledging, I feel so angry and I feel really justified in that anger. Something happened that was unfair and I have a right to this anger. So we start really leaning into the emotion, feeling the emotion and honoring it and acknowledging it and giving it its day in court, essentially, so that we can allow our bodies to let go of it. We need to talk about it enough to the point that to the extent that we feel it. And then in those moments, we can let it go. But it also incorporates a somatic therapy aspect. So when we are generally talking about stress, people most of the time are worried about something that happened in the past, worried about kind of repeating something that happened in the past, or we're catastrophizing about the future, and we are not having our energy and our focus actually in the present moment. So if we are tapping on our bodies, we can't help but kind of gather all that energy back and get grounded in this present moment. And in this present moment is when most people are really safe. And it's okay to kind of let go of that stress. Talking about anger, you might feel anger over being betrayed by somebody. But we're not actually betrayed in this present moment. It's a shadow of something that happened in the past. And so getting centered in this present moment really helps to recognize, oh, wait, that's not actually happening anymore. I don't need to hold on to it. So it's a combination of the energy, the cognitive, and the somatic therapies that is so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
What's happening on a scientific level is when we feel stress of any kind, the electrical signals go up to our amygdala, the stress center in our brain, and it's signaling that something feels unsafe. And in that moment, our body goes crazy, releasing hormones, the stress hormone cortisol, and, systems shut down, and we are feeling really anxious, and we don't often know why. 99% of the time, we don't know why. But what tapping will do in those moments, even without saying anything, just the act of tapping on our energy meridians will start pulling cortisol out of our system. It reduces cortisol 43% faster than if you had done nothing else. It reduces your heart rate, it reduces your blood pressure, and it increases your immune response. So all of this is happening on a physical level while we are just tapping on those energy meridians. So it's telling our amygdala, de-escalate, de-escalate. It's okay to feel safe and calm in this moment. And our body is responding on a physical level. And we are also letting go of whatever the stress trigger has been. So there's a lot of things happening at the same time. And it is a really powerful process to go through. And often it's hard to talk about and have people truly understand it until they experience it themselves. But over 300 scientific studies have been done, and they all show the efficacy and the effectiveness of this really powerful tool.
And it's so simple. I mean, it's one of these things that literally anybody can do. You don't need a therapist to do it. You can do all of these things on your own, just knowing how to actually perform the tapping and where to perform it and all of these things, which your app shows everything, right? It shows
Yeah.
exactly how to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a beautiful way to overcome some trauma and definitely stay grounded in the moment because I think that's very important too. There's a book that I love. I read it and it changed my life. It's called Letting Go, and it's all about sitting, like exactly what you said, sitting with those emotions, feeling them, giving yourself permission to feel those emotions, and
Yes.
then releasing them. The only thing that, and it's been a while since I've read that book, but I'm not sure if that book goes in detail about how to necessarily like release it. It's just kind of like you have to let this go.
Right.
But I love that this is a modality that facilitates you releasing because it does keep you grounded. And I love energy work, become a huge advocate for energy work. I have gotten way deep into the emotion code and just how all energy works. And we're all made up of energy. It's a magnificent thing, really, when you sit down and think about how our bodies is made up and everything in our universe is energy and how everything kind of synchronizes. And so there's definitely some power behind being able to attack your trauma and emotions in this kind of way.
Yeah.
Very natural and very holistic.
You were talking about emotions earlier and how people don't often want to engage with them. And I think that we've never been conditioned or encouraged that that is a good thing to do. Where men are told cry and women are told that they're going to be, if they have any emotions other than happy ones, then they're hysterical and they need to be committed or something along those lines. That's our history with uncomfortable emotions. And so it can feel really scary to go down that road and to actually engage with and lean into really painful emotions like deep sadness and hurt and fear. Like, I'm not just talking about phobias like of spiders or something like that, but deep, deep fears about being rejected or being abandoned. And it can feel on a physical level like you're going to die. if you engage with those emotions. It can feel really, really scary. And that's mostly because we've never been encouraged to do it. Like there's a great risk with letting yourself feel all of those things because there's a lot of judgment and criticism that can go along with that from the outside world. You can lose credibility with people if you actually allow yourself to go through those things. And so I think that's one of the beauties of tapping too, because you can do it by yourself. You can do it in a place where you feel safe. But even just the idea of feeling those things feels so foreign that it's just an area that people don't have a lot of practice with. And I can tell you from experience, obviously I've been doing tapping for over 20 years now, both on myself and with clients, and you build a muscle with it, just like with anything else, any other kind of workout. The more you do it, the easier it gets, the stronger you get. You build a language for and an understanding about what's happening on an emotional level, something that we have pushed aside for too damn long. And it's basically starting to bite us in the butt, really. So we need to start learning how to turn into it, how to deal with it, because it will keep knocking on our door and it'll just get louder and louder the more you don't deal with it, like you said. So that's why I think
Well, you
now is
know,
the time for tapping, and now is the time for people to start learning this skill because it is a skill.
yeah. And that it irritates me to the fullest because I'm just like, they teach us so many things in school. We have public school system that teaches so many things, but they've never taught how to regulate emotional control, like how to have emotional control and how to regulate our emotions when they pop up.
Yeah.
And even I've often wondered this, well, it's the parents' responsibility to teach this. It is, but so many parents have never been taught how to do that.
Yeah.
So
They
you
don't
have
have
the
the skills either.
blind. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have the blind leading the blind. And it's like, I was never taught that. I can't remember a time that I was actually taught that. And I don't think that people learn the value of that unless one, they've gotten into some type of therapy, had some type of breakdown where they're like, I've got to figure out a solution to this, or in some rare case, you've started a mental health podcast and you've talked to a ton of experts that says you need to regulate your emotions. But whatever the case is, it doesn't negate the fact that you definitely need to regulate emotions.
Hmm.
It's a human trait that we've all been blessed with. Emotions are actually a true blessing. I don't say that to be funny. It really is a blessing that we're able to feel. And yeah, we have negative emotions, we have positive emotions. Sometimes those negative emotions can be turned to positive if we know how to kind of transmute that power into something positive, turn your pain into power,
Hmm.
turn your trauma into triumph, whatever that
Yep.
looks like, you
Yeah.
can do that. But
Absolutely.
before you can even visit that type of thing, you have to understand how to regulate your emotions. Because unfortunately, if you've been through some type of trauma, that thing is going to continue to rise back up. When you're triggered or at the most unopportune times, it's going to raise its head and it's going to say, remember, I'm here. I'm trapped inside of your body. You
Yeah.
have to learn how to release me. And so I think that this is why something like what you're doing, your work is so valuable to people. And I love the idea that you can do this from anywhere. And I was thinking about this when you were talking about the app, that you can literally, people wouldn't even know. They would just think it's like a nervous habit. I mean, you could tap and not even, you could do it in public places while you're having a conversation with people. People aren't even going to really know that.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of this modality. I think it's amazing.
I think so too. I do it in my car. I'm like driving down the road. I've got one hand on the wheel and the other hand I'm like going through my tapping points. And yeah, I don't care anymore. I used to care. I used to feel really silly doing it. I used to feel really guarded about having people see me do it. Obviously, I know the incredible benefits of it now. So if somebody's curious and they're going to ask me, I welcome it. But I understand. I understand completely how vulnerable it can feel to signal to anybody that I'm not okay right now, whatever, in whatever way. And in just tapping, you would be signaling that, right? There's a need for me to regulate my nervous system for whatever reason, but you're signaling to other people that you're not okay. And we're so used to getting the message that we have to slap happy feelings and happy words and actions on top of something that smells really horrible. And it just doesn't always work. And like you said, if you continue to do that, it's not what I'm going to call an authentic healing. You might have risen above it to a certain degree, but there is that part of you that's still holding those emotions in your body. And like you said, at some point, it's going to come up.
Well, at that point, you're introducing more emotions. So then you're introducing
Yeah.
this idea of shame or ego. It's like, I'm not human enough to and authentic enough to share with people that I am a human being and I do struggle with emotions. I like to think I've got a lot of my stuff together, but that doesn't mean that sometimes I don't want to lose my crap. Like it
Yep.
just happens. I'm human, as is everyone else. And I think we live in an age where social media has made everybody like paint everything
No.
and live in color when realistically we're still human beings. So this is the part that really, I guess, burdens my heart about social media. It has a lot of great things about it, but what really burdens me is that people look at other people's lives and they think, oh, they have everything together. And I love the influencers, the people that'll hop on social media and say, you know what, this is authentically like I'm struggling through this thing. I'm having a hard time with this thing because it
Hmm.
normalizes that. It
Yeah.
normalizes a human experience in the
Yeah.
world. And
Yes.
so I don't want to get too far off because we could probably banter back and forth about this all day.
I
But
agree.
at the end of the day, I think the main thing for my listeners is just like, hey, if you are struggling through something, like there is no shame. There should be no shame put towards that
Right.
because we're all human. But if there is some type of shame and you're still working through that and working through the ego of like, I need to be okay all the time, using an app to regulate your nervous system when you're struggling through emotions that nobody can tell what you're doing is it's a beautiful, simple thing that you can do that is I truly believe is powerful. And I haven't used tapping, but I do understand energy to the point that I think energetic healing is powerful, and there's different ways you can use energy like you mentioned, and this is just one of them, but that's powerful enough, and it attacks the root problem. It's like what you said, it's a beautiful thing, so you're not putting a band-aid on things.
Right. Right.
I know we were talking right before we jumped on here about I was asking you about EMDR and how what's the differences and how this relates to EMDR.
EMDR is really similar to tapping in that it accesses the root trauma that people generally struggle with. EMDR does it in a different way than tapping. Tapping does it with obviously the tapping, but also kind of a visualization before we actually begin the tapping. You kind of put yourself back in that moment and allow yourself to feel all the feelings and see what was going on in that environment. And then you kind of take a rating 0 to 10 and see where I am with intensity. And EMDR does it with different type of tapping. They access the trauma differently. But what happens afterwards with EMDR is that a therapist will work through just cognitive, regular talk therapy to try and process that trauma and allow you to let it go from your body. And tapping doesn't. It has that cognitive aspect as well, where you're actually talking through all of the emotions and what happened and allows you to process it yourself. So there's benefits of having a therapist right there who has a background and can understand all the ins and outs of that trauma and what you should be focusing on. There's a limitation with the cost for a lot of people. If you have to do it in the company of a trained therapist, there's a significant cost typically that goes along with that. And with tapping, you can in general do it on your own, but there has to be also a level of awareness about what to focus on. And I will say that with any kind of like big T trauma, and I'm going to categorize trauma in two different ways, big T and little t. Big T is when there is a very specific event that happened. It could be a car accident or a wartime event or, some kind of physical or sexual assault, something along those lines. If there is something like that, then what you want to do is kind of take it frame by frame. There's a timeline of the event and you need to take it frame by frame and very slowly and delicately tap through each kind of event that happened along the way. So, for example, if there is a physical assault of some kind, there would be the moment where you recognize something bad is about to happen. And in that moment, we're making a decision. And if you're holding on to that trauma, there is guilt or shame about whatever decision you made. And so you need to go through the whole timeline of the event and tap on each one of those moments where there was a decision made, where there was shame or guilt that went along with it. And then you need to neutralize those with tapping. And then you should be able to neutralize the entire thing down to a zero.
Now, what you just explained, how do people get to the emotion that they're feeling? So if I were to have experienced some big trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going frame by frame, but it's hard for me, especially if I've never really explored my emotions, it's hard for me to know what that emotion actually is.
Yeah, yeah. With a
So,
big trauma like that, I actually don't encourage people to work through that on their own. I think they would benefit greatly from working with a trained tapping therapist. Because should never kind of force themselves into, let's like some really, really scary feelings. I'll just say that if I'm going to work with somebody that's got a big T trauma, that even the idea of working through it brings their intensity way up. I'm going to start with that trauma in a vault on the other side of the city. And my client is the only one that has the ability or the knowledge of how to get them out, how to get it out of the vault. So I don't have any say in that. And we know that it's way over there, and we'll tap it down to a zero over there. And then we bring it a little bit closer and then tap that down to a zero, a little bit closer. And then maybe we open the door. We're not engaging with it, but we open the door on the vault. And so there has to be kind of an understanding of how to move through it and what emotions are going to happen along the way. And a trained therapist can ask the right questions and be able to lead you through that more.
now is that something that you do with clients? Like if they work with you one on one, you do work with them on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, it's my favorite work to do, one-on-one client work, because there is a lot of benefit from working with somebody one-on-one because I'm going to use their language and I'm going to talk to only their experience about it. I don't care what anybody else in the room is doing. I just want to focus on what their experience is with the moment. And so you can move through a trauma a lot faster that way. And just the reward is so great. Seeing somebody on the other side of it actually smile and go, oh my God, I feel like it's gone. That's a really amazing thing.
Yeah, I would
That's
say
my favorite
so.
work to do.
I would say so. There's something very rewarding in overcoming those types of trauma or any types of trauma really. It's rewarding, and when you can help someone work through those things, that's powerful. So in that situation, you would work with someone kind of helping them bring that trauma closer and closer till they could attack it then on their own. Then you would put them onto the app and then they would do this on their own.
So, well, no, so they could engage. I bring it closer and closer so they can feel safe enough to engage with the trauma again. And then we go through all of the points on the timeline of it and we'll neutralize those together. And then when they're on the other side of it, the trauma itself, then that's when I would point them to the app and say, now all of the limiting beliefs that you developed as a result of this trauma, now you can start working through those on the app. And the app can lead you through those things really effectively, whether it's like a fear that you are unworthy or undeserving in some way, shape, or form, or the fear that you can't let down the armor around your heart because somebody's going to really hurt you again. Whatever it is, all of that stuff is on the app. But the trauma that created that fear is now neutralized and it's no longer going to be feeding it. But you still have to work through the limiting beliefs that developed as a result.
I love that. I love that. So, am I wrong in thinking that the app is great for present day? So, like if something happened in my day to day, say that I got a terrible email from a client and it just set my day horrible, then now I can regulate my nervous system and my emotional state by I can open my app and say, I'm going to regulate everything here. But if I had something that I was struggling with, like I did get attacked or whatever in my home. Like I'm just hypothetically thinking of a situation that could happen. So now every time I go to bed at night, I'm struggling going to sleep because I'm going back to that trauma.
Mhm.
Then in that case, you would need to do additional work. The app it could help, but it may be dangerous to tap into that because there's bigger things that I need to address first. Am I
Well,
wrong
what
in
I'll
thinking like
say,
that?
yeah, what I'll say is that sometimes you need a Band-Aid. You need a Band-Aid on a gushing wound just so that you can make it through your day. And then when you have time to address the deeper issues, that's when you're going to deal with it. So the app, there's no tapping scripts on the app for dealing with any kind of a big T trauma. There just isn't, because it's just too personal to people, and it's too important, I think, for them to work with a therapist. But there is an opportunity on there for you to go in and say, I'm feeling really anxious in this moment, but I have a thing that I need to do. So I don't have time to like go back to childhood shit and start dealing with, I don't have time to address that, but I do need something in this moment to just help me to calm down. And that is available on the app, but also the deeper stuff, not the trauma work, but the deeper fears, like the fear of rejection or the fear of abandonment or fear of not being worthy or deserving. All of that stuff is there for you to do deep work when you have the time and energy to address it. But then there's also a tapping script for just getting to sleep. I just need to sleep tonight. And right now, in this moment, I just need to feel safe and calm. When I have the time to address the deeper trauma that's causing my insomnia or my inability to feel safe falling asleep, I will deal with it. But right now, I need a Band-Aid. I need to wake up refreshed in the morning. And there is a tapping script to help people through those moments.
Yeah. And my understanding is that if you've experienced like what you would call a big T trauma, sometimes those things can get dangerous. If you try to jump right into therapy, this
Yeah.
is why sometimes you need a therapist to walk you through some of these things. But I think your work is amazing. I think it's amazing, and I love hearing any type of modality that can at least give people the opportunity to try something that they can work on their own, and it helps them regulate their emotional system. I think
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell us where can they find this app? The app is called Soar with Tapping.
Soar with Tapping, SOARWITH. TAPPING. You can find it on the Google or the Apple Play stores. You just search for Soar with Tapping, and you'll see my logo on the icon. But you can also email me, Amy at soarwithtapping.com, if you do have a big T trauma that you feel like you want to work through. I do have a couple of slots available for individual client work right now. And then you can find me on all of the different social medias. I do like a little daily tapping to help people get through their day. Just try and give people gifts, to give them a different perspective about feelings and emotions and courage to lean into them and allow them so that they can let them go.
Yeah, and I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes, and we'll get people connected to you if they want to be connected and learn more about tapping, and I'm sure they can learn a whole lot more through your website and through your social medias. Do you have a website for the app or for your services?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Soar with tapping. And you can reach me through that avenue or, like I said, through Amy at soarwithtapping.com.
And then are you present on all the social media channels?
Yes, yes, I am.
Yeah. Is it Soar with Tapping or is it under your personal name?
Soar with tapping. Yeah.
Awesome. So amazing work. And I'm grateful that you've gotten involved in this and that you have extensive experience behind it as well. So 20 years of doing this.
Yeah.
What
Anytime.
a what a beautiful modality. So tell us, Amy, if you had a big final takeaway that you would want to leave my audience with, what would that be?
I think trying to think of all the things we've covered today and what we haven't covered. I think what I really just want to encourage people to do is just recognize that we are multifaceted beings. We are physical and spiritual and intellectual and emotional. And we have largely agreed that paying attention to our physical self is really important, and our spiritual self is important, and our intellectual self, but we haven't really agreed about that emotions. I mean, I think we're starting to, there's a movement that's starting to happen that's recognizing how important our emotions are and the problems that it can cause if we don't honor and acknowledge them and allow ourselves to feel them. But so there is a lot of evidence that's telling us that it affects every other aspect of our life if we don't honor and lean into our emotional life too. And not just the easy emotions, not just the happy ones, but the uncomfortable ones. I don't think any emotion is negative. So I've kind of stopped saying positive and negative emotions. I just think that there are ones that are really uncomfortable, and I get it. But I also think I have experienced so many great rewards in my life from allowing myself to lean into those uncomfortable emotions and move through to the other side. It's like I've suddenly realized that the sky is blue after all these years of trying to just be a certain way, or do a certain thing, and not honor who I am authentically. And there's good and bad, and light and dark, and uncomfortable and happy emotions on each of those things. And allowing yourself to kind of lean in and accept that that makes me whole is a totally different and comprehensive way of looking at life that is very rewarding from my perspective. It's very, very rewarding, and I encourage everybody to do it.
That is beautiful. And I didn't ask you with the app, is it a paid app? Is it a free app, or do you have different versions?
There is some free content. I'm just discovering, because that's why I'm thinking through my answer on this, because I thought you could access it easier, but I'm going to try and make it easier to get to the free content. But it is a paid app at this point. And yeah, so there's monthly, quarterly, or annual options with it. And I just encourage people to give it a try, because even the annual option is less than half of one session with me
So what
cost
is it
wise.
on, like a monthly rate? What is the monthly rate for the app?
Believe it's 9.99.
Okay. So
Yeah.
very reasonable to just check out if you want to just check it out for like a month
Yeah.
and then see
Yeah.
if it's beneficial to you. And I love that. I think it makes it accessible for so many people, and I believe that that's really because the world we live in right now. I mean, realistically, not everyone can afford therapy, and not everyone can afford
Yeah.
to, which you mentioned earlier, that it doesn't put limitations on people getting the help that they need and the therapy that they need.
Right.
And,
And I
I,
think there's something special about tapping too, that with cognitive therapy, I think a lot of people get an intellectual understanding of what they should or should not be feeling, but they don't really allow themselves to actually feel it and like feel it in their body. And I think tapping kind of creates the space for you to feel it more. Feeling it is what allows you to move through it. Not just thinking your way through it, but feeling your way through it allows the release. And so that's why I think the different aspects of tapping that come in addition to the cognitive, are what really allows you to move through it a lot faster.
yeah. Well, I've certainly got to go check this app out because I'm a big advocate for energy work, like I said, and for any modality that can help, especially at a very reasonable rate. So I encourage anyone, if you wonder about it, if you have questions about it, then by all means go check it out. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you just jump in and find out what you don't know. And so I'm a big proponent of that. So I think it's amazing. Is there anything else that you want to leave my audience with or tell them specifically about your work, about the app, or anything else really?
I would just say give it a try. I think suspend your judgment and give it a try. It's really easy to see and feel the effects of tapping when you're doing it right, and know that there is great value in doing the work after you've tried it.
I love it. I love it. So go check it out, Soar with Tapping, and let us know what you think. Well, if you try it out, let us know. But Amy, thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you spent here with us today and just opening us up to such a powerful modality. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great conversation.
Hey there, friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time here with us on Through the Trauma podcast. Your presence means more than you know. If this episode has spoke to you or gave you hope or made you feel just a little bit less alone, then I would love it if you would take a second, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who truly needs to hear it. Every share, every comment, every listen, it all helps our message get out and reach those who truly need it the most. Healing happens inside of a community, and together we are breaking the silence and creating space for transformation. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are not alone.